those from my generation who grew up here, I was an anomaly. Many people were like, oh, I don't speak Hindi. Like, I can understand it though. We were immersed. And then for that generation to have kids now that are in grade school, high school, you're helping turn it around in their families. That maybe your parents only understand. You have the access now to learn and take it further. That is magnificent.
And it's not just connecting with your heritage culture. It's also so many job opportunities.
Yes.
Being a multilingual or bilingual is a part of our lives in India. And the whole aspect about the brain's development. As we age, our brain is, if we are multilingual, bilingual, it's just such a big advantage in fending off any sort of brain-related issues in our old age.
If we really want to diversify American cooking, we have to get people when they are young and still developing their palates. And if we can raise children who are nostalgic for onigiri and dumplings and shahi toast and dal and tostadas, then we are basically raising them to then view all of these foods as just everyday parts of the American cooking canon. Because if you think about the foods that are the most comforting to you, they're the foods you had when you were young. So if we are diversifying people's comfort foods, like, we are making real change in American food culture.
There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our mom sense and dad sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobbi Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. As a South Asian American, stories from my diaspora resonate so deeply, and it's what my husband Sunil and I seek to pass on to our 3 kids. On this episode, I'm highlighting 2 of my favorite authors and dear friends and the upcoming Asia Society's AAPI Children's Literary Festival, which was the brainchild of Anu Sehgal, who's the founder of The Culture Tree. Anu is a children's author, and The Culture Tree is a cultural literacy and language education company that focuses on South Asia. She lives in New York City with her husband and 2 sons. Anu believes awareness of one's heritage, culture, and language is key for children to become self-aware and confident as they make their mark in the world. She holds an MBA from Yale and has worked in the corporate sector for over 15 years. Let's hear how it all started. Anu, welcome to That's Total Mom Sense.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for having me.
This is going to be so fun because I'm lucky to have you as a confidant and a friend and someone I'm constantly texting and talking to on the phone. And so to have you in this format is such a treat.
Yeah, and we have worked on 2 projects together, so I feel you are my colleague.
Yes, that too. 100%. So the themes of this interview are culture, community, and cuisine, because we're going to hear later from Priya Krishna, who you're helping with her promotions for her book. But when it comes to culture and community, like, you are synonymous with the 2. I have to start with your multicultural upbringing because that's where it all started. Tell us about your childhood and how staying connected to your roots was such a big part of it.
So yeah, my household was like a melting pot with a mother who was Muslim, a father who was Hindu, and I went to a Catholic school throughout. It was a true melting pot in which we celebrated diversity that exists in India. All the festivals were celebrated. All the stories were told by my grandparents, by my parents. And humanity and kindness were the things that were really emphasized and focused on rather than religious beliefs. And now that I have an organization in which cultural literacy is the focus and language literacy is the focus, I am realizing how essential that has been in making who I am and in my belief system and in my process of gathering my support group and my friends. It has completely percolated in my life.
And so were you always this community builder? Like when you think back to your memories in grade school or college, like did everyone just kind of flock to you?
Ever since I was little, I was kind of like a leader in my own element. I used to bring people together. We used to live in this multi-story building, which was a very new thing in the small town I grew up in. I rallied all the kids because our terrace was really dirty and we used to clean it every week. One or the other auntie used to bring ice cream for us by the time we were done. That aspect of bringing people together, I think it is a part of who I am personally as well as professionally. I am always bringing people together. I find so much joy in bringing people together, and I'm a social animal. I work from home most of the times. You know, the aspect of having colleagues, that's something that I miss from my corporate world. But then if I'm feeling that I need to bounce ideas or I need to be someone, I'm always reaching out, and I
Yes.
feel you and I have that relationship as well. So I think that has carried forward, and that's the reason there is ease in which I interact with people and also with kids, because that is a part of my professional life.
Yes, yes. Tell us about the impetus for the culture tree.
When I had my second son, I have two boys. Older one is 15 now, younger one is 12. But when I had my second son, I started interacting with Indian culture. And there is a lot of Indian culture in New York City in a very different way. And I had this sense of responsibility for my kids to know their heritage culture, to really own their heritage culture and be proud of it. And that was the real turning point for me. I also wanted my sons to know Hindi language, which is the language that I spoke. I saw a problem in which children were learning about Indian culture. There are so many exhibits that are there. There is festivals. But for children to learn about anything, it has to be in quote unquote a language that they understand, a
Yes.
format they understand. They have to touch and feel. And that was not how it was being reflected. And that's not how it was being showcased. Initially, I was trying to just make some differences in my household, the way my boys were interacting with their culture. But then I really thought that there is so much that can be done.
Yes.
And given that I have that duality, I grew up in India, then I moved to US, I felt I would be a perfect champion for the Indian culture. When we started the Culture Tree, it was a language platform with a focus on 4 languages, Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati, and Punjabi. Slowly, I started building relationships with museums and libraries. Now I have such a strong relationship with these institutions in the tri-state area, and they really look up to the Culture Tree, not only to provide program, but also provide any guidance for any sort of cultural literacy for children.
Yes.
It's become a multi-sensorial approach in which we are using music, dance, books, and food to really teach and go deeper on the Indian culture and South Asian cultures as of now.
As at large, yes. And this is something that really speaks to me because, growing up, like, I feel like I was kind of an anomaly. My parents moved from Bombay to the US when I was 2. And my mom at first started volunteering with the school called India School. And then she became the vice principal, if you will, and stayed for 30 years. But something that it was a non-negotiable for me and my sister Monica to go to India School. And I still remember, we did 15 plus years of Hindi language, Hindustani vocal music, and we chose Kuchipudi dance. For the language particularly, it stays with you. I still remember I had to do a diploma class with the embassy. There was Pravesha and then Pariche. And I had this teacher, Sarla Prakash, that she taught us how to write business letters. And there was one exercise she did was like, write every single verb you can think of. And I had this composition notebook where I filled up the entire thing with verbs. It was like Ana, Jana, Rona, Hasna, Dena. It taught me the language so well that now connecting the dots when I moved to work in India, it was like I just had such a command over the language. And what you're providing, which it gets me choked up to just think about it. Those from my generation who grew up here, I was an anomaly. Many people were like, oh, I don't speak Hindi. Like, I can understand it though. We were immersed. And then for that generation to have kids now that are in grade school, high school, you're helping turn it around in their families that maybe your parents only understand. You have the access now to learn and take it further. That is magnificent.
And it's not just connecting with your heritage culture. It's also so many job opportunities.
Yes.
Being a multilingual or bilingual is a part of our lives in India. And the whole aspect about the brain's development, as we age, our brain is, if we are multilingual, bilingual, it's just such a big advantage in fending off any sort of brain-related issues in our old age. So I literally, any new student, and my students start in elementary or preschool, I do tell them that there are so many benefits of learning your heritage language or any other language as well. But heritage language has its own set of, advantages.
Yes. And you take pride in that. But tell us about the variety of programming you have. I want you to definitely touch on your successful South Street Seaport Holi event, which is like just incredible. And then Diwali is huge. Like you really go above and beyond for the major holidays.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The South Street Seaport, I literally hear about it every time I'm out and about. I had a call with someone from Cincinnati yesterday. She basically approached me after she came to know about the South Street Seaport Holi event. So we've been doing this Holi celebration with the Seaport, which is in downtown Manhattan, for the past 3 years. And it has grown every year. Every year we add bells and whistles, we add new elements. But this year it just went to the next level. As you know, Kanika, we had 7,000 RSVPs, around 5,000 attendees. Our programming was so varied and it was throughout the day, and it was perfect for families because Holi in India could become a little too much, a little rowdy. So this is a safe environment, and that is a focus for us. Like when people think of the culture tree, they do think of programs that will be safe for kids, that will be educational. And that's something that came through in our Seaport Holi event. We started actually with a beautiful day with a cooking segment. We called it Foods of Holi with Priya Krishna, in which Priya read from her new book for kids. And then it's called Priya's Kitchen Adventures.
Yeah.
And then we told children about the foods of Holi, how the foods change because of seasonality, and it's becoming hot already in India. And then we did a tasting of Shahi Tukra. Then we had our puppet show, and of course we had a DJ, a Dholi dance performance, dance workshop, and this was all outdoors in right by the river, and it's just a historic district, so it's so beautiful and picturesque.
Wow.
And we also invite South Asian vendors and small businesses to showcase what they are doing, because building that community and helping each other is such an important part of what we are doing.
Right.
My organization has become like a community-based organization. So that is very critical. Of course, we had chaat, we had, all the delicious food and powder play, which is playing with gulal. We tried to replicate all aspects of playing Holi in India. And one of the things that I used to enjoy a lot when I was a child was the water fights with water balloons.
Yes.
Each child was given a paintball, and they had this huge canvas on which they could throw the paintball just to replicate that water fight aspect. So it was net, it was a really fulfilling and a really amazing experience for children, for the Indian American children, but then for any family.
Yes.
And we had families from the diaspora, but we also had families in general that attended. And the highlight for me was when I made dosas with John George.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Incredible. Yeah. Core memory in your life.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And next year it's going to go to the next level. We have already come up with a date. The other aspect that is important to me for all these celebrations, and we do a lot of celebrations, as you know, Kanika, is I personally believe we can't have a celebration a month after the actual festival.
True.
Because the importance to the children from our diaspora really, or families from our diaspora really goes down. So that is also a critical thing for me. And I know the weather can be touch and go in America during, and especially north sides, but we try to do whatever we can to make it a really authentic experience for our community.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the celebrations are concerned, we are celebrating all different festivals, all religions that originate in South Asia. Right after Holi, I had my Eid celebration. And then we have Raksha Bandhan that is coming up. And I actually have a book that is going to also come out this summer on Raksha Bandhan. And
Wow.
right after that, it is Diwali. Last year, we even celebrated Gandhi Jayanti, Gandhiji's birthday. We had a celebration for the Jain community, the Buddhist community. So we are celebrating all these milestones that are big in South Asia, in the educational aspect, along with the celebratory aspect, because both are important.
I want to get into your writing. You felt inspired to be a children's author. You've written Kahani Rangili, which I have, and I Am a Lotus, which is coming out. Tell us about your books.
Yeah, so Kahani Rangili, this is the book about Holi. It is written in Hindi, and I've written it with a publisher called Tea for Tales. I just love the books that they've written. I used to read the books for my kids. One of my favorite books from Tea for Tales is Kahani Purani. It's the story of Ram Leela.
Uh-huh.
So I pitched the idea that, we should have a trilogy. So Kahani Purani is Diwali, Kahani Rangili is Holi, and the book that is coming out in summer is Kahani Chamkili, that is for Raksha Bandhan.
Mm-hmm.
All these books are based on stories, mythological stories from Hinduism, almost like lost stories that we heard from our grandparents. And I'm sure, Kanika, you grew up here. I'm sure you heard from your parents and grandparents. So almost like the oral tradition, but they're just lost. We don't see them anywhere. We don't hear about them anymore. So I am trying to revive those stories for our kids and for children in general. And, my book reading, because I use my books a lot in my events, this one is a Hindi book, but when I am reading this book, I am reading it as a bilingual story time.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And even non-Indian kids and families really enjoy it. What is Krishna really known for? It's his friendships, his love for his family and friends, and it's a very relatable concept. So by the end of this book, we become Krishna in mind and body. We all stand up and we replicate how, Krishna is. And then we talk about aspects of Krishna, friendship, kindness, which is very universal.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm trying to do now, because I feel there are a lot of books coming, and thankfully we need a lot of books because there are such few diverse books, especially books from South Asia. So the more the merrier. My book that actually launched last week is the new one is I Am a Lotus. And this is really the book on a lotus flower. And the lotus flower is talking to children, telling them how they can be kind, they can be resilient, and how, in spite of anything bad that happens in their lives or in their day, they can emerge. They have really resonated. And I feel, given that I have these established relationships with New York Public Library, with museums and schools, I can really take them to the next level. And then I have written a book, My First Hindi Words, that came out last year. And this book is all about introductory Hindi, more for the expat children. So it's really simplified. It doesn't talk about concepts or words that they will never experience in their lives. Like, I'm not talking about Tori and Tinda. Our kids are not going to see firsthand.
No, that much. Yeah.
It's very relatable concepts.
Right.
That is very critical to me. This was actually in my head for the past 7 years. And then finally, I just said, okay, let me put it down on a piece of paper. And that's what, approach a publisher.
Tell us about the AAPI Lit Fest.
I had come up with this concept of a literary festival. I actually hosted a literary festival pre-pandemic. It was on a smaller scale. But I've had this concept in my head for a few years. I wanted the Lit Fest to be a full-on experience which is, catered to children. So our attendees are going to be kids, primarily elementary and middle school children, in which they will hear firsthand from all these amazing authors and illustrators on how they started their journey of writing, on what the kids can do at their age in becoming writers or illustrators. Wow. And then we have workshop. We have a writing workshop. We also have an illustration workshop. And the writing workshop is with Veera Hiranandani. The illustration workshop is by Shinyan Moon, who both of them are quite well known in their community and in the literary sphere. Then we end in a culinary workshop, which is with Priya Krishna, in which Priya will read from her book, and then she will also teach children how to start documenting recipes. Because in this day and age with TikTok and Instagram, recipe writing has become a lost skill, completely lost. Mm-hmm. So we are going to reintroduce that to children. And the special aspect about this literary festival is that high school children from the AAPI community will run the show. They will be reading the bios, they will be helping the children, they will be helping the illustrators, the authors. So they'll basically run the show. So there are dual things that are happening. Children from the AAPI community or children in general will experience this, this new aspect. And then teens will actually interact with their heritage cultures in a more organic way. Uh-huh. Because once the children are teens, they are not our captive audience anymore. Right. I have teens. They don't go where I tell them to go. They do their own thing. Yeah. But volunteering is a really amazing way in which they can have a purpose, and the purpose can be their cultures. It's just an amazing way for serving both the age groups. And I feel there is not much that is there for the teens right now. So hopefully this is the starting point to something much bigger.
To get them involved. Is there a mantra that you live by?
I think my biggest mantra is just hard work and persistence. Luck is not as critical for me It's my hard work and persistence that has really helped me throughout my life. The other thing is, like, I just feel I have so much to do in my life, and our lives, you never know how long our lives are. Just making difference in every single day. We can make so much difference around us and in our community. So that is the most important thing for me.
Yes. And now, if you can share with my audience where they can find you in the Culture Tree and how they can register for the Lit Fest.
Absolutely. So you can find more about the Culture Tree on our website. It's theculturetree.com. Of course, all my events, classes, everything is on that website. And the Literary Festival, you can actually go to our website on the events page, or you can go to Asia Society, their website, and you'll see it in family programming, and you can register there. And you can also follow me on Instagram, The Culture Tree, where you will see all the things that are happening and all the events that are coming up.
Thank you, Anu. I couldn't be more proud of you for all that you're creating for our families. You're just exactly who we need as a fixture in our community. So
thank you so much, Kanika, for everything.
Now let's learn about a rising star at the AAPI Children's Literary Festival, Priya Krishna. Priya is a food reporter and video host for the New York Times and the best-selling author of multiple cookbooks, including Indianish and Cooking at Home. Her stories have been included in the 2019 and 2021 editions of the Best American Food Writing, and in 2021, she was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list. She's been nominated for a James Beard Award and an IACP Award. She's originally from Dallas, which is one of the busiest travel hubs we know. We already spoke about culture and community, and now we're going to dive into a third C, cuisine. Priya, welcome to That's Total Mom Sense.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
Thank you. This is going to be so fun. I can't wait for my audience to get to know you better through this episode. And for those of you who are attending the Lit Fest in New York, we can't wait to see you in person. You are a world traveler and you began traveling at the age of 2 months old. So tell us how that all started.
So when my mom immigrated to the States, one of the first jobs she found was working in the airline industry. And we lived in Dallas, which was a very busy hub. And for anyone who's ever had, a family member who's a pilot or a flight attendant, you know that it comes with really fun perks. So it basically meant that we would go to the airport and see whatever flight we could get on, and we would stand by. And if we could get 4 seats, we could fly for free. It often meant we were sitting in the back of the plane. We didn't have seats together. But my mom just raised us to be, good, efficient travelers. And so my childhood was spent doing a lot of really, really awesome travel.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And this is something that definitely resonates with me. My Masi flew with Air India for, oh my goodness, 40 plus years.
Wow.
Yeah, she started at the age of 19. Nani flew for free, my mom, my uncle. So we would go all over the Far East and Europe, and some of my best memories, particularly Paris and Bangkok, are with my Masi. And it's just, and I still remember even when we were younger, we'd go to India every summer, where she and my Nani were based. And there were times where, we'd be traveling with my mom. It was me and my younger sister. She'd have to travel on the jump seat. We'd be, sitting elsewhere. So I know how that is. It was just you power through these long flights and layovers.
Yep, exactly.
Because, it's going to be so worth it in the end.
I was very familiar with the McDonald's at the Frankfurt airport because we had so many layovers there.
Yes, I know that one vividly. It's layover central. It's does anyone get off here? What were some of the core memories you've developed? Because you have, walked the Great Wall of China, seen the pyramids. Parthenon, you've done it all. Like, is there any that really stick out to you that like this was a place that I will always remember from my childhood?
Before I was claustrophobic, I climbed inside the pyramids of Giza, and I don't know that you can go fully inside of them into the tomb rooms anymore. But I remember our tour guide was like, who wants to go inside? And only me and our family friend Mega, who we were both really tiny, wanted to go inside. So we just went, just the two of us and the tour guide, and she took us through this maze of pathways that had previously been traveled through by British looters who came to loot the tombs. And we ended after this like maze of tunnels in the tomb rooms where the pharaohs' tombs would have been. And it was this absolutely surreal moment. I mean, and it was also a really crazy moment for me too, because I remember asking like, where are all of the jewels? Where's the tomb? And the tour guide being like, the British Museum, and then just giving me this look. And
oh my gosh.
Beginning to understand about how so many countries have had their antiquities looted and they're in a Western museum somewhere.
Totally. We need our Kohinoor back.
That needs to happen. Kohinoor.
Yes. I want to segue into cooking because I have to give your mom props. It's hard to cook in the kitchen with kids. Sure, you can give them a task, but things aren't peeled properly or cut properly. But the life lessons and just the skill to be able to do that is just, well worth it. So how did that manifest where mom was like, or even dad was like, come on in, you're cooking?
My parents love food, and my mom loves cooking, and my mom loves trying new things. And so we would try these new things on our trips. And my mom, the thing she always says is, I can make this at home. Like, I can recreate this at home. So we would come home and then we'd do our own research. We'd talk to our friends whose families were from those countries, and we would come up with our own recreations of the things we had tried. It wasn't this like harmonious partnership between my mom and me in the kitchen. I feel like my mom was terrified that I was going to cut myself chopping or stick my finger in a blender, or like one time I did put glass on top of the stovetop and it blew up.
Oh no.
And there was glass everywhere, but she always invited me in. I just spent so much of my childhood just perched on top of the kitchen island, watching her handing me spoons of things to taste, saying, namak TK, is the lime okay? Is the salt okay? Nibu TK, is the lime okay? I think more than her being like, can you chop this? Her being like, can you taste this and tell me if it tastes okay? That really made me feel very empowered as a kid.
I love that. Our kids watch MasterChef Junior, and I do let them like cut cucumbers and strawberries and things like that. But I feel like this book is going to be inspiration for them to do so much more. And it'll be a means for them to try new foods and like expand their palate. I think that's so, so important with picky eaters. Do you have any advice for that? Like, how can parents get them to experiment a little more when they're in the kitchen?
I really think it's like about empowering your kids to make it and do it themselves. Like, I found that I worked with 30 recipe testers, all children, for this book. And I found that when they were making the dish themselves, when it was their job to put dinner on the table, they were a lot more open-minded. Like, I got a lot of comments from kids that were like, I didn't think I liked feta, but then I put it in the salad and I tasted all the components together and it was good. Or like, I opened the fish sauce and it didn't smell good to me, but then I put it in the dumpling and like the dumpling tasted good. And so I feel like I could see kids in real time like recognizing their biases and then overcoming them. And I think if they were just given the end product to eat, maybe they would just push it away because they're like, oh, this has something that I don't think that I like, or it smells unfamiliar to me. But I think giving them the opportunity to make it with their own two hands. And also, like, the recipes in the book are intended to give kids choice. What filling do you want in your bun? What do you want to top your tostada with? What do you want to roll your elotes in? I wanted the recipes to all feel very choose your own adventure. So a kid could be like, well, I really like avocado, so I'm going to load my, tostada up with avocado. Or I really like chorizo, so I'm going to put chorizo on it. One of my recipe testers put everything bagel seasoning on top of her English breakfast, and I was like, that's brilliant. I love it.
That's wonderful. I think it's so great. And the fact that there are 54 recipes in here, we have something we can try every week over the weekend, which is awesome. And your cousins, Radhika and Rishika, are your sous chefs, and they're sprinkled through the pages. Love seeing how this is a travel log and a photo album. It's so, so cute. You grew up with access to other cookbooks on your shelves. Your mom has referenced Julia Child on this lovely NPR interview that you did. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mom loving Mother Jaffrey at home. Mother. Yeah. So what are some of the qualities that attracted you to those personalities who became household names as celebrity chefs?
I feel like for me and my mom, we were so inspired by people like Mother Joffrey and Julia Child because they felt like real cooks. They didn't feel like chefs who had to make it perfect all the time. I loved the early stages of really personality-driven cooking shows and personality-driven cookbooks where it's if you mess up, it's okay. If you add another onion, it's okay. If you don't like this, you can take it out and it doesn't matter. And I feel like I've tried to bring that sort of ease and not taking yourself too seriously with cooking. People ask oh God, if I put an extra teaspoon of this, is it going to be ruined? And I'm like, no. And if your mushroom is a little bigger, that's okay. If you have a large tomato instead of a medium tomato, put in the large tomato. And I feel like every single one of the recipes I write, I try very hard to bring that spirit to it, where it's you don't have to be super, super precise. You can kind of play fast and loose. There are many opportunities to adapt. And that's something I bring to my adult recipes. But I think something that was especially appealing to kids was not having to do tons of very intense measuring and being able to make choices at various stages.
100%. And for the adults, you have Indianish. Tell us the inspiration for that book.
That book was really born out of a desire to normalize Indian flavors in American cooking and seeing that what was labeled as simple and everyday was very white. There are millions of people making food on weeknights, and they are not all white people making roast chicken and pasta. Yeah. And my mom taught herself to make Indian food in America based off of just memories. And she had to put dinner on the table every night in 20 minutes because she was a working software programmer. Yeah. And I just found that my mom's ability to make food that was vibrant and delicious and complex tasting, fast and with few dishes, she had this uncanny ability. And I was like, this will translate really well to the everyday home cook. Yes. These recipes are not only delicious, but they fit really well into the lives of a busy home cook. And my secondary goal was just I want everyone making dal. I think dal is the ultimate everyday staple. I don't know why Indian food for so long had been thought of as project cooking, as difficult, as heavy. I just wanted to untangle a lot of the stereotypes around Indianness and Indian cooking. And, I literally wrote American on the cover because I was like, I don't want this book to be an international cookbook. This is an American cookbook.
Yes. And it's actually, not to stereotype, but oftentimes Americans or those from the West are oh, Indian food, curry, chicken tikka masala, naan, bread, chai, tea. And it's no. Have you ever had methi aloo? Or just a simple tadka dal with moong dal that you make at home? That's what we grew up with. And it's not what you see in the restaurants. Do you have a comfort food that you love that, you make or you made with your family? That's a desi dish.
I love gardi chawal. I would say gardi chawal. I don't know how to describe gardi. In the book, I say it's a soup, but it's not really a soup. It's it's its own thing. It's chickpea flour and turmeric and yogurt that you stew with different spices and you eat it over rice. And it's like a cozy, tangy, spice-infused blanket. And most traditional versions have pakoras, although I strangely do not like pakoras in my curry. I just like the curry on its own. And that is a meal I could eat straight for days on end. It's so comforting to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're speaking my language right now. I totally get it. And, I grew up in a Punjabi household. So like curry is pretty staple. What's challenging and rewarding in your career? Because you're also a journalist and, kind of straddling these two worlds, there's a frenzy there in the kitchen and in the news world. How do you navigate it?
I have to say, I feel really thankful that I get to do both because they satisfy different itches. And I thankfully am one of those professional cooks who still finds cooking extremely relaxing. Reporting can be academic, it can be intense, flex is a very different muscle. But cooking, the days when I'm just testing a recipe feel a little bit more chill. But both of these things bring people joy in different ways. When I am cooking and when I'm reporting, my goal is still the same, which is to expand the lens of whose stories we tell and to normalize the stories of people who have not traditionally been represented in media. So while the feeling is the same and the feeling is different and the mechanism is different, the goal is always the same.
Okay, let's play a fun rapid fire.
I love a rapid fire.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. What is your favorite place to travel with friends? Like a fun girls trip?
San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. And travel hacks or items that you're like, oh my gosh, you need this?
I always wear a hooded sweatshirt on the plane because the hoodie just sort of functions as your own it's like you have your own sleeping bag on the plane.
Totally.
Always a hoodie.
An ingredient that you just find yourself using all the time.
Chaat masala on everything.
Cool. A celebrity chef you'd love to cook with.
This person sadly passed away, but I wish I could have cooked with her. And that's Leah Chase, who ran Dookie Chase, a very iconic New Orleans restaurant. I would love to go to New Orleans and cook with her.
A song you have on repeat.
The Sound of Music soundtrack. I love the Sound of Music soundtrack. It brings me so much joy first thing in the morning.
No way. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many times we watch those VHSs. That's the best. I would be like, Brigitte. Love it. Okay. Book that changed your life.
Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Kong.
Nice. And a mantra that you live by.
Oh, this is a piece of advice someone gave me yesterday that I think is really good, which is that worrying about a problem won't actually solve it.
Oh my gosh. So practical and applicable. What are you most excited for, the Culture Tree and Asia Society's AAPI Children's Lit Fest? It's going to be lit.
I am excited to buy all of the books for my nieces and nephews. And second, I just think that children's authors are the best authors. I think they're the coolest category of authors. I have had so much fun meeting other children's authors. They're fun, they're thoughtful, they don't take themselves too seriously. I just think it's a really incredible community and I'm very excited to meet more members of it.
And where can my listeners find you and your books and all your work?
I am on social media at Priya Krishna. My stories are on New York Times. My videos are on YouTube, New York Times Cooking. The book is available wherever books are sold. But if I were you, I would go to an independent bookstore because you got to support our local bookstores.
Yes, 100%. And is there anything else you'd like to share with those who are listening and watching?
If we really want to diversify American cooking, we have to get people when they are young and still developing their palates. And if we can raise children who are nostalgic for onigiri and dumplings and shahi toast and dal and tostadas, then we are basically raising them to then view all of these foods as just everyday parts of the American cooking canon. Because if you think about the foods that are the most comforting to you, they're the foods you had when you were young. So if we are diversifying people's comfort foods, like, we are making real change in American food culture.
That's brilliant. I love that. And I think, as parents, and even you who's creating a legacy in this way, you are giving young kids a multicultural experience, a chance to pique their curiosity, and an opportunity to embrace all those around them: foods, languages, history, and more. So it's so remarkable. So thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some great takeaways from our conversation. Join my community by logging on to that'stotalmomsense.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast, wherever you listen, and be sure to rate and review. On socials, my handle is @Kanika Chadda Gupta on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and X. You can also find me on LinkedIn. My episode videos are on YouTube and YouTube podcasts with highlights on YouTube Shorts. Write to me at that'stotalmomsense@gmail.com. My team and I read all your pitches and feedback and are so glad to be in touch. Remember, always trust your mom sense and dad sense. Stay strong, super parents. See you soon.